What's popular, YouTube? Another day, another demo. Went to the doctor yesterday. Well, actually, went to go to a walk-in clinic and then to get my back checked out. Still standing, as you can see. And when I went to go to the walk-in clinic, I saw there was a sign in the walk-in clinic. It was like back specialist. I was like, oh, back specialist. I don't even want to talk to my GP, right? I want to go to a back specialist. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to the back specialist. Got an appointment for the back specialist. Came back a bit later on in the day. Got checked out. Of course, he's like, oh, you're super stiff. Your back sucks. You injured it. All the stuff I already knew. And then did some like physio stuff. Put some electrical pads on my back. Put some like icy hot type substance on my back to numb it out. Bit of a massage, you know what I'm saying? Break things up in there. And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, time for an adjustment. And I was like, what? Time for an adjustment. And I was like, holy shit. I'm at a chiropractor. I thought it was just a regular back doctor, whatever that's called. I ended up at a chiropractor by accident, and I was terrified. When he said, oh, we're going to do an adjustment now, I was like, oh. And I've been on YouTube. Okay, I know what that looks like. He's like, hug yourself like this. And I was hugging myself to be in the perfect form, but I was really hugging myself because I was terrified. Okay, that's the real reason I was hugging myself. So I was hugging myself tight, and then I like put my leg over it, and it like jumped on me, and then it just like pushed down. And before, I was terrified because my back, he was like, do this, lean forward, stop when it hurts. And at all those points, there was different points where I was like a little bit scared, couldn't go farther. So I was like a little bit worried. I was a lot worried. I was terrified of the thought of, cracking my back or doing something like that. But what I was even more afraid of course, was admitting that I was scared. So I did it. It went great. Didn't feel a thing. Just a little pop, crack in my back. And then just went on with it. It was good. Felt good. Going to go back in a couple of days, do some more of that. I think for the most part. The irony is that for me, I've always thought a lot about my posture. But I think the postural muscles is the thing that I have spent the least time working on. So I've always kind of been fighting to keep my back straight and so on. And then the irony is that my lower back is very stiff, and ever since I guess my injury when I was younger and I never got it checked out, it's always just kind of been extremely straight, and I've gone against the natural curvature of what my spine wants to. My spine wants to do something, and I've never let my spine do it basically. So now I've got to undo some of that. I got to fly in 10 days, so I'm not extremely excited. I've already been like this for like a month now. It feels like it's kind of nuts. So hopefully I feel well enough before the flight. I'm probably going to do dream hack like this. I'm just more comfortable standing. Just been standing for most of the days. But getting a lot better, and this should hopefully help out even more. A little update for you guys if you were wondering. Thought I'd take a second to talk about this. And today we got a very special demo to look at. Okay, it's finally a Tarik demo. We've been putting this one off. Everyone was like, do the Tarik. I mentioned the Tarik backstep once and never heard the end of it in the comments. Where's the Tarik backstep? Well, you know what? We're going to look for the Tarik backstep in this demo versus 100 Thieves. But first, I want to put forth a bit of a narrative here, okay? And that's for me. This is something that I feel like I've noticed just watching the games a lot of the time. Oops, I don't know where my camera is. And that's that Tarik dies a lot. That's what I've noticed, is that he dies a ton. And I just went ahead and took a look at a lot of his harder games here. I just got like Furia, 100 Thieves, Furia Liquid, these ones. And I mean, even when Tarik is playing well, like he's top of the scoreboard, he's dying some of the most, right? He's actually dying a lot, like top frag and top death. KD not looking too hot most of the time for Tarik. 36 deaths here in this series. These are just all of his recent games, right? I mean, he's up here. He's not exactly number one on that round. And Yeah, I mean, look at this, 25, 21, 25 on these series. He dies a ton, and a stat that we actually just talked about on it's server time. Recommend go checking that out if you didn't. Um, I noticed there's a lot less interest in the Dexter video, even though I felt like it was actually one of the better demos. Maybe just because Dexter's not as big of a name for his clicks, but that's fine. I talked about it. We did a show called It's Server Time, so just want to give him a second shout out. Go and check it out on YouTube with Maui Snake, Josh Mix, and Note. Okay, it was on there as a guest. There's a few episodes out now, and we were asked to bring up our most underrated stat, and I brought in deaths per round. I always thought deaths per round is a stat that people just don't talk about enough. That players need to be dying less because every time you die, you drop $5,000. You in unnecessary deaths, you jeopardize the future rounds where you could have bought. But it's not something you talk about a lot because you forget what happened a few rounds ago. That really important death that resulted in you not being able to buy. But I think it changes the course of games a lot. So are we going to talk about how Tarik's deaths are a huge problem? Maybe. We're going to find out, the way he dies in some of these rounds. But to me, thinking about Tarik and the kind of person he is, my idea is that I've seen Tarik die a lot. I know he dies a lot. But I also think he plays a key role on the team for his playstyle. And I think that results in a lot of deaths. The way I look at EG, so okay, you've got Ethan and Breeze. Ethan, Breeze, and Cirque are your core. Stanislaw is not an extremely strong fragger compared to them, but who is, right? Tarik was a star at one point, but at this point he's kind of like a Stewie. Like he's just filling to help the other players win more. And Tarik has the potential to top frag, was a star himself at one point. But with the way he plays, it's way more selfless, I think, than anything else. We saw some of that selflessness be forced, I think, upon him on MIBR, where I think on Cloud9 he was playing more of a star player role in some spots. And then I think he's kind of adopted and he's kind of embraced it, I feel like, a little bit with EG. And I kind of see it this way. I mean, he's not as sick of a player as Ethan or Breeze on their best day. Those two are just unreal riflers, right? Like those are your kind of like a Legion, I don't know, a Legion Naf or whatever you want to call it. I mean, mechanically they're both a Liege. But I kind of see them as the president. Okay, president, vice president, Ethan and Breeze. Cirque's in there too, but just for this analogy, they're the president. And Tarik is a secret service, okay? They go where they need to go. And Tarik throws his coat on the ground before they step over a puddle to make sure they don't get their shoes wet. He jumps in front of bullets to make sure that they don't get shot, right? He's the sniper on the roof. He's the guy holding your hand. He's the guy making sure that everything else you're not concerned about is taken care of so that Ethan and Breeze can focus down and get a lot of kills. And I feel like when he fills on CT side, we're going to look at T side dust too, just to see. But I feel like when he fills on CT side, he's always wedging himself into these positions before big battles happen, thinking very carefully about timings and quickly, and just trying to make sure that he's doing his part in the action. Not baiting. He's very selfless, not baiting, being almost like bordering on reckless. And maybe if he was fragging a bit harder, he wouldn't die in some of these spots. Like if he was quite as talented as, mechanically as say Ethan or Breeze, he wouldn't die in some of these spots. But I think it's his experience that shows how valuable he is to his roster. And we're talking a lot about this. We haven't looked at anything yet. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at Tarik and see if this is really the way it is. But that's my that's how I look at Tarik when I think about Tarik in my mind. And when I've watched some of these matches, this is what I see: a player who, he plays as a sacrificial lamb. He plays to make sure trades happen. He plays to be in a spot when he needs to be, not when he can comfortably get there. And on this round, he's going to entry out long. It's a match versus 100 Thieves. There was tons of deaths by him. I think this half is just a decent half. It was actually, I think, a 90 ADR half, but a 13-14 scoreline, something like that. So Tarik's here out first, and we'll see he wastes no time. And in the wake of his movement, tons of space is being created behind him. He's not standing there jiggling at the corner. He's running up, making sure his teammates have space to move up too before those smokes come up, and guaranteeing that people can play a bit more for themselves behind him and just trade. He did have the best spawn in that situation, but the entrying could have changed depending on who, once they got out of long doors. At that point, somebody else could have gone in front if they were really going to play that role. So we can see Tarik has an affinity for entry fragging and is, putting himself in that position very purposefully. So here is doing the hinge smoke and jumping back because people are listening for that hinge smoke and then just spamming the door. Taking a little bit of damage here. Frontline attack on the default. Grat gets a scout shot off over at long. And it's a regroup. So here we'll see Tarik third up to long. Out the door. And we'll see where he ends up. Breeze is really taking the lead. And they'll finally start moving. Galil, one of the best Galil players, I think, in the world. Tarik has some very high Galil stats. And they'll look to take some very long-range duels versus pistols on this round. But I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. Buying Galils, getting drop Galils, going in first, sacrificing, making space, trusting his team. We see their tunnels defaults move quickly all the way through, and it seems like a mid to B is coming, so Tarik's going to start to clear out the doors, entering once again. And we can see just creating tons of space, really not waiting for anything except for nades, and then getting into the site. So far, so great. A couple of Galil frags, and we're out to a kind of first rifle round. Didn't have the best spawn on long. And unfortunately, it is about spawns when you go to take long. Whoever's in front. Doesn't matter if you have an entry fragger or not. So whoever has the best spawn is going to be the guy to go up first, just period. If a CTs have the best spawn, no matter what your T spawn is, the CTs will get to the corner first. Just so you know. And Tarik does his best to get across. Spammed at the doorway. Circ 1v3. I feel like I would have seen this if he did grab the 1v3, but he's not in a bad spot. Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, now he's in a terrible spot. He's got to jump out, but he's got his Molotov down, so he's taking 30 damage. He'll want to fight. They're probably going to shoulder him on Cat, right? Yeah, so he's just looking for whatever he can get. And there's, of course, potential for the CT walk-up. There's one on the CT walk-up. And now he has to pick where the next fight. Wow, he was so close. JKS pretty much pre-fired him on the A-ramp. Pretty much had to pre-fire him on the A-ramp to kill him. Cirque was definitely on for that. I'm sure he swore in Bulgarian after that round. Okay, so now just throwing his supporting flashes for them getting out. And it's for the first time we're getting to see EG play as opposed to a team play against EG, which I felt like that's all we were doing in these demo reviews prior. So laying down the suppressing fire, making sure nobody can run out through the smoke, trying to cancel out the fact that they threw this CT smoke aggressively before thinking about crossing. And Tarik is, I guess, meant to just sit on the ramp as they're comfortable with the sight boxes. I feel like no one's actually boosted up or crouching behind them. And that's a very simple round once those 2 kills come down. So just throwing kind of supportive grenades when he's not entering there towards long. Of course, in Counter-Strike, things are much more fluid. It's not like you pick a carry. You don't pick a carry in the draft screen and then you're a carry for the whole game. In Counter-Strike, your role can change depending on your spawn. It can change depending on the side. Whether or not it's a high frag position. You could be playing like Connector on Mirage on CT side, but then be a B-Apps lurker in the same map, right? It depends. It depends on the map. It depends on the side. Sometimes it even depends on the form. Sometimes you have your opper drop their op to another player. So just more Galil kills. I don't think he's even got a single AK kill this game. And that's what's great about Counter-Strike, but that's what it takes a little bit more discipline, a little bit more self-awareness to play on a roster to understand where you're at, either on that day, on that map, in your team. I think that one of the reasons Counter-Strike is a little bit more bearable because you can, Dota, you might queue up and be the lowest ranked player on your team, but then pick a one and have to carry. And in Counter-Strike, you find out your team's bad or you're having a great day, you can be the carry. I think, people complain about solo queue in Counter-Strike. They don't know how good they have it. Most other games force you to pick roles, even other FPS games. Oh, Tarik pops off Azur, and he's kind of running this lurk. This is pretty much him on the default most of the time when they're not entering long. And he is dismantling them. I mean, he's doing a good job here at mid. That's pretty much the round over. That's a mid to B cross plus the cat player pushing up. Max one player in the site. Doesn't look like there's any. Most people are not playing 2-1-2 setups. For the most part, it's 3-2 setups. Sometimes it feels like CT sides across maps are getting a lot more passive. CT economy, of course, is a lot more fragile. Things are going to start changing a little bit with the AUG coming into play a bit more. But I think the economy now is starting to push things to become a bit more T-sided. So, well, we'll see what that means. So that spam specifically is for when they fall back, if they're tucked into the right side of the door. People sometimes move back into position after you throw the Molotov, so we might see him spam again. What's cool about the mid to B smoke here is that if you go up cat or you go mid to B, it's a useful smoke for you. Like if you're going to cross long, for example, or basically what it is that oh wow there. So he did actually move back into the spot or never left. But what's cool about the mid to B smoke is it can be multi-purpose. It can be a fake. It can not be for a fake. It can be used for your players to cross long. If they want to fight into spawn, it can be used to make it seem like it's mid B. You run up cat really quick because you're not far from going up cat versus mid B. So it's a kind of smoke that you can't react to all that often. But when things like the brave kind of deliberate move you have to make on CT side is that when that mid to B smoke comes down, or you think the T side is gonna pick a site, you have to know which side of the smoke you're going to be on. You have to know if you're going to be in CT spawn or you have to know you're going to be on the left side of the door. Because that rotation crossing the door is where things get dangerous. If you cross the door one way, they can see you from cat. You cross back, they're going to count you. They're going to say one moved over towards A and then try to get a read on your setup. So mid to B position is very important on Dust 2. So here, this is mostly tunnels. People like the 4-1. I love, a 4-1 with just one smoke, one lurker here at mid. He knows he's going to get cleared, so he's just got to pick a timing to fight, and Azur's actually outside the door to grab the trade. Everybody ends up going down, and we move on to the next. Just a Glock for Tarik here. And Tarik spot there after he throws a mid B smoke, like he's going to get hard cleared. He actually has to pick a timing to peek. And he doesn't pick a bad one. He just doesn't finish the kill on whoever was there in the smoke. Things looking up here for 100 Thieves. Tell me if we should do a 100 Thieves demo. I think I got DreamHack Fall coming up, so the next few videos, I'm going to record a bunch today. The next few videos are going to be DreamHack Fall preparation videos. A lot of European teams to talk about that from maybe demos that we haven't done yet. It's kind of cool to see how much he can, Tarik can do for all of these different strategies being in lower B and how quickly he kind of goes there. So there he's third in kind of entry as he comes back from the lower tunnels, and and the post plant should be good. So here's just dodging flashes, of course. One thing we wanted to talk about is Tarik and how he crouches for his fights a ton. And I think we'll see. I think we'll see great examples of that in the second half. I might do another one for CT side, maybe for one of the matches I remember. But Tarik crouches a ton, and like if you would look at walk peeking as a terrible thing to do, like almost very few situations do you actually want to walk peek, because if someone's holding an angle and you walk peek, that's when angle holding is very strong. In this game, you don't want to hold a pre-fireable angle if someone swings on you because it's too fast, but if they walk into it, you can get the kill. But at crouch peek, you could typically be under where they're going to hold the angle. And then Tarik does crouch a lot. He'll crouch slide out. He'll crouch spray a lot. We see just a high percentage of rounds where he just has a Galil. It's pretty funny. But of course, he expels almost his full utility kit in the first half minute of a round. A lot of his nades are just mid to B grenades. The only time he really doesn't is when he has long spawn, and Stan calls for that. So they're doing left and right sides smokes and mid. So this is really great at scaring CTs, because if they aren't close mid doors, then they have to clear this out and they're scared to rotate. So it's a really strong strategy here to go for the long split this way, because if you have someone anywhere near mid, let's say you had 2 in B, they won't feel comfortable rotating knowing that someone could be out there in between the smokes in a number of places. So I really like this strategy. It's one of 5 strategies on Dust 2. One of the top 5 as well. The kind of tunnels default. Tarik crossing for information. I guess wants to see if they go K-sharp on this strat. It looks like Azur's actually pushed all the way up cat. This makes things awkward. See how kind of the mood is a bit scary here for the T's, but they get the they get the kill on Azur. That's big. But at this point, someone might have pushed long. It's possible. Depends how confident Azur feels like like what kind of default it's going to be. Smoke plumes in their face. Tarik here up front. And he's there just to jump out. And again, just very scrappy, of course. Like opens himself to being a target. Knows he's going to take damage when he goes out first. Tries to just be hard to hit more than get a kill. Like his knife was out all the way until he got onto the car. Ends up getting the kill as well. But we can see the mindset right there. Off in a lower crouch peek again to clear things out. Takes a second to actually just ends up using himself as bait since he had a teammate right there. No reason to take that fight. A lot of people make the mistake of like, oh, almost finished the kill. Oh, I'm just going to pop up and finish it. Don't do that. Just let your teammate do it. You actually have such a good play to let your teammate finish the kill, even if you did most of the work, because they're terrified waiting for you to pop up again. Don't make that mistake. All right, we got one more round. Let's see. Of course, we've seen just a lot of Tarik playing his spot really well. A couple of eco cleanups, but a couple of strong rounds alone out in the lower tunnel. It's interesting we contrast this with the way that Mouse play. A lot of 4-1 defaults with Rops in B, in tunnels by himself. Solo, moving very slowly, holding upper for most of the rounds. Here, EG, move ahead a little bit more quickly. Do more 3-2s and stuff like that. And they have Tarik use his grenades a lot more frequently and a lot earlier. So this one's a bit interesting. So he's actually just going to run out. Oh my god, Jacob is still waiting. Okay, so of course, if someone had played outside of the site for that one moment, then Tarik could come in and lock down the site. But Jacob's sitting there with a mag 7, so he takes a small risk. And I don't know, like, there's no way that, somebody called for him to do that. He got some information, he made a choice. So we can see there's some personal agency from Tarik in that situation. And that'll be a wrap. So we didn't really talk so much about the individual mechanics of Tarik, which is something I did want to focus on if possible. But we just got to see Tarik playing his role. We got to see some examples of him being very selfless, how things happen a lot faster from Tarik's perspective than I think for everybody else. A lot of how he's entering at basically every opportunity, and why, that could result in a high number of deaths, of course, if you are entering on a high percentage of the rounds. It wasn't as if he was entering every single round. Sometimes if he didn't have long spawn, he wasn't the one. Sometimes he'd be third in. But when they did set stuff, when he had the spawns, he was always first. And yeah, like the round in B where he jumps over to the car, there's a situation where you can see he's mostly thinking about he's thinking about the grander scope of the round, like the creating the space, opening things up, causing a distraction. Like he jumps out with his knife out over the car, right? He gets the kill, but he's not even thinking about that. He's just thinking about getting the information so his teammates can get the kills. And I think that, that's something that you have to have a player that's willing to do that. You can't you can't teach some players to be that, right? You couldn't make Rops an entry fragger. It just wouldn't happen. He just doesn't have the personality. He just doesn't have he's just too careful. Whereas you've got a good mix here on EG of players who are a bit more careful. Stanislaw is actually, quite brave himself, I would say. Stan Tarik, and then you can really protect Breeze Ethan, allow them to be second, third in, and get the majority of kills. And Cirque, of course, is also a fairly, I want to say, movement-based opper. I don't know. He's quite fluid with it. He's not really very static. He's got it all. I mean, Cirque is just an A1 opper. He's just a great opper. But yeah, I thought that was a cool demo to watch. I'm gonna call this one "Why Does Tarik Die So Much?" And maybe we'll do another demo, potentially on the CT side, where we can talk and focus a little bit more on the mechanics. We've talked a lot about mechanics recently and done a lot of CT side, so this is a nice change. But yeah, thanks for 80K subs. And of course, I'll see you back here for another demo. Oh, damn, it's already 2:50. I gotta put this one up. Peace out.